Welcome to the Inside Track on Real Estate with the Dekker Team. I'm Ken Dekker.
And I'm Yetta Dekker.
And together we form part of the Dekker Team. And we're pleased that you're listening in today. And today we're going to talk about one of those favorite things again. How's the market doing?
Yeah, and we're going to be looking at July stats.
Yes, exactly.
Right? And up to some talk about things up until July of 2014.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Yeah. So, again, it's a tale of a couple of cities, two cities. The condominiums, let's talk about them first. 262 sales compared to 268 sales in 2013.
In July.
In July, so down just marginally, 2.3%.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a significant amount of money, not a significant number of units down. So fairly
Pretty much
stable.
Flat, yeah.
Yeah. What's interesting is the average sale price was $261,663.
Right.
So that's a decrease of 5.3% over July of last year.
Right. And it's always a little interesting when we're talking about averages, because when we've only got 262 homes or units or apartments, it could be apartments, it could be townhouses, it could be anything that has a condominium fee with it, not a maintenance fee, but an actual condominium fee, right? It could be anything like that. So with only that few units, if a few smaller ones or a few larger ones have sold within that mix of the 262, it can throw off the average price. So it's not necessarily saying that every townhouse in the city has gone down just over 5%.
Right. And so one thing that's kind of neat to look at is what's the median price. So if you took off the top half and the bottom half, what's the median price? And it looks around $238, so quite affordable. And over 75% of the sales that happened in July were under $299,000. So basically under $300,000, over 75%.
Right. So that means in the higher end of the condominium, probably apartment style, because once we start to move over 300,000 in the condominium market in Ottawa, primarily we're talking about the high rise. Yeah. And we're talking about the more executive high rise, and we're talking about the buildings that have pools indoors often, or they're located downtown, or maybe both of those.
So very few of those selling.
Well, 25% are over 300,000.
Yeah. Okay. Now some of the new ones that they're building, 300,000 buys you less than 1,000 square feet.
Oh, well, buys you a few hundred square feet, actually.
So,
and that doesn't include the new construction unless that new construction has actually been listed on MLS.
Yes, these are just the Ottawa Real Estate Board stats. So they're for all of Ottawa and surrounding area that the board supports. Again, the inventory, 2,050 condo homes for sale. Last year we had 1,750. That's an increase of 17.1% year over year in the inventory. So the inventory continues to climb. If we go back 5 years ago to 2010, or 5 years, 2010 would be 875 condos for sale. So you can see back then we had about 3 months inventory, Now we have 7.8 months inventory of condos compared to the sales that we're selling.
Right. Well, it almost sounds more like 10 months worth when I think about, you said 2,500 units.
No, 2,050.
2,050. Okay, so if you all heard what I heard, I heard 2,500. So in my brain, that's what I translated it to. So just over 2,000 for sale with 262 selling in July.
Yeah. Now, July's down from June and May sales, typically.
Right. A little bit.
But that's normal. That's normal. Yeah. We start going down on our way to December now.
Well, don't we have a little bit of an increase often in October, November? Yeah, I do.
It feels
Personally,
like it.
I always do.
We tend to get busier, and yet sales, the quantity of sales continues to go down month over month until we get back into March of next year. So we're on the slippery slope of the downslide of the number of sales, not necessarily pricing. Because it's interesting, I did look very closely at the 5-year trends on pricing. Pricing typically goes down in July and August, and starts
Average
to climb.
price.
Average price.
Right.
And starts to climb a little bit in the fall. And that's maybe what you're thinking about, that fall increase
Well,
in
and I
price.
always have a great fall.
Yeah, you're
so
always
my
busy.
fall is
We're
always like
busy.
my spring. And
Yeah.
so I often think of, maybe it's because I take the odd holiday in the summer.
Nah.
No, it's not that, eh?
No.
Because even when we are on holidays, which we haven't had too many this year, but even when we do, the rest of the team is here. So we stagger our holidays when we are taking them so that there is always a great 1, 2, 3, or even 4 realtors available to help our clients, regardless of what time it is. So whether it's Christmas or whether it's summer holidays or whatever it is. So that actually helps spread out the ability to continue to care for clients so they feel well cared for, and it also allows us to have consistency.
Now let's remember the condominium sales, the number of sales was down 2.3%.
Right.
Okay? When we flip into freehold, and freehold just means no condominium fee.
It could have a maintenance fee, though.
It could have a maintenance fee for a road, like if it's on a private street, then that may have a $80 or $100 a month
$50,
fee or whatever. But that's not a condominium. It's because the ownership's not held in common.
Of the actual home.
Yeah.
Yep.
So now, sales of the freeholds actually went up. We sold 1,183 freeholds as a real estate board, which was an increase of 12.7% over July of last year, which was 1,050. So the freeholds have really strengthened our market. And what's really interesting, though, you would think if sales went up that high, what would happen with pricing?
You would expect it to go up, and that's not what's
Average
been
sale
happening.
price actually went down a little. 377,791, which is 0.8% lower than July of last year. Now, again, these percentages, you got to take them over a long period of time and in certain areas. So we're going to do some, I've pulled some stats on 3 different areas that we're going to cover later on in our show. And it's interesting, though, what caused that average price to go down? So one item is 6 fewer sales in the $1 million and over category in July of this year compared to July of last year.
Right. And although 6 doesn't sound like a lot, when you're talking in over the $1 million, that has a significant amount of impact on the average.
Yeah, because again, the 50% of the sales are under $350,000.
Right, so they're well under even the average sale price.
Mm-hmm. So then if we
that's
throw
even
in
in
a
the
couple
freehold.
millions, it starts to pull the average sale price up. Yeah, that's in the freehold. As a matter of fact, almost 80% of sales were under $450,000. Okay. That's a significant amount of the sales under that price range. So if you've got a home that's over that $450,000 price range, you're dealing with a 20% of the market that can afford to buy it.
Or that is buying it. Right.
Now, so my mind went to what caused 6 properties less to sell in the $1 million price range? So either the expensive price range is not selling as much as it was, and I think that may be the case. Also, if the market's softening, quite often the upper price range will drop fairly significantly. So it's actually a great time to upgrade, to move up in your home. Because, a house that maybe was selling at 1.1 may be selling at 950 now.
Well, it depends, right?
But I'm just saying, and that would take, if a few houses dropped off that 1.1 range or 1 million and dropped to the 900, 950, 975, whatever it is, to make it more appealing. Because when you get over that $1 million price range, people are really, there's few people that can afford that.
Well, and it's not even just affordability. It's often when you get into that really very successful price range in the higher over the million, a lot of times folks are looking for exactly what their dream is. Mm-hmm. And so rather than renovating somebody else's dream and somebody else's ideal of a perfect spot, there's more construction also taking place in that price range, right? So that's also part of the pressure when you move into the $2 million price range and up toward that there's fewer of them and more people are building them from scratch.
Yep, absolutely. I was just trying to figure out why 6 fewer sold.
Right. Okay, so do you have another reason?
No.
No, that's it?
No, I think there's those 2 reasons. There's just fewer sales in the higher price range, and maybe some of them have dropped to go just below that $1 million price range. Interesting thing, inventory, 6,450 homes for sale right now at the end of July. Last year, 5,650. That's an increase of 14%. So inventory went up 14.2%. Compared to 5 years ago in 2010, we're up 66% in inventory. Okay.
So that just again, and I know if you listen to our show every week, then you're going to hear this maybe once every 5 or 6 weeks. We do a show on the market update, and you'll hear similar things each time. And that simply is that your home really does have to show beautifully.
Oh, yeah.
Maintenance matters, interior and exterior. It's not so much that will or will it not sell, because most homes, if they're priced correctly, will still sell. So it is a conversation of, will it sell at the right price? Mm-hmm. That's definitely the case. And with as many homes as you're hearing us talk about, many of the homes actually are not selling, and they're simply coming off the market, never having sold.
Yeah, and I actually pulled the stats on that. So for inventory-wise, right now we have 5.5 months of freehold inventory, which is really a balanced market.
Yeah, that's not terrible.
It's the high end of a balanced market.
Yeah.
It's not horrible. So I looked at how many new listings came in on July, and there were 2,380 new listings, minus the 1,183 sales, minus the increase of 800 properties that are still on the market, equals 397 homes that either canceled or expired off of the MLS.
And didn't come back on.
Some of them may have been relisted. They might have come back in that number. 800.
Right.
But still, the stats are that 397 struggled with selling and decided to either expire or
well, there's still that
pull
many
them off.
fewer there as well, right? We haven't dropped in inventory, but those are gone from the market.
Yeah. But a lot of times people will say to me, oh, well, the house down the street, the sign's not there. What did it sell for? And it's not necessarily that it sold. It could have just they got tired of trying to sell and pulled it off the market because they couldn't get the money they wanted, really is usually the problem.
And in some cases, especially in the condominium market, what we're finding some folks are choosing to do is to retain the property as a rental, because the rental amounts in terms of the income is pretty good. And so to keep the property as an income property in a market that isn't increasing purchase price as a whole very much right now would be a good time to potentially take something you already own and turn it into an investment property. Yeah,
it's not a bad strategy, and many of our clients are doing that actually.
Yeah. And some are buying for that reason.
Buying investment properties or keeping their old small house, like if they're upgrading from a townhouse to a single or something, they'll keep the townhouse, turn it into a rental, and buy the single for their new residence.
If you're just joining us on the Inside Track on Real Estate with the Dekker Team, we're talking about the real estate conditions and basically a market update for July of 2014. And right now I just want to slide a little great opportunity in there. We have a property. We usually do this at the end of the show, but we'll let Ken feature his favorite, and I'll feature mine right now. We have this awesome property that you can sit in your family room and watch the kids play in the backyard, or you could be out on the deck watching the kids in the backyard. And it's an all-fenced, treed, serene, beautiful, tranquil yard, and it's also on a really quiet street. So not only do you get no road noise or virtually nothing to hear except maybe a few other kids playing down the street, you get the beauty of trees, and it's fully fenced, which in the Greeley area, you don't have very many where you have the privacy as well as the fencing. Just because I guess there's so much fencing to do, it's not commonly done. So it is one of those gems. And also standing at the kitchen, if you're doing some cooking, you can still watch in the backyard, whether it's a dog or the kids playing or even the grandkids if you're at that stage. And also open concept kitchen going into the family room allows for a really nice entertainment style. And it is a 2014 kitchen, so it's really very, very beautiful. And then a big porch at the front. So if you like to sit and watch what's going on in your neighborhood at the front, there's a wide veranda covered. So even in the days where there's a little bit of rain, you can sit and enjoy the the raindrops on the roof. So great opportunity, and it is available immediately, and it is value. This is an incredible opportunity for somebody. It is only $435,000, which for the home that it is exceptional. So give us a call if you or anybody you know, because this really is one of those gems that is available immediately.
And where would they call us?
They would call us at 613-860-4663, 613-860-4663, or you can always email us at info@dekkerteam.com, and we will get back to you as quickly as possible as well. One of the realtors that is keen to show you the property and make sure you could call it home.
Yeah. So I've created something a little different today.
Okay.
I'm comparing a couple areas. And one of the incentives for doing that was we were recently showing an investment property to a client, and they said they really liked transitioning areas. So we were showing a property in the Westboro area. And so what I thought I would do is I'm going to compare what I would consider two kind of transitioning areas to an area that's a growth area, just a newer community that's in growing outside of the Greenbelt. Okay?
Right, so we're in the Greenbelt, we're outside of the Greenbelt, and we're just doing some comparisons of communities.
So the first area is Westboro. Everybody
Right.
hears about Westboro. It's in transition. It's kind of like the future Glebe, or it's got the nice shops on, and it's really transitioning and developing. So I took a look there, 67 active properties with an average sale price of $721,897. That's telling me that area is transitioning up, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
2 conditionally sold, both at on an average of $741,000.
Well, that was the asking price.
No, the average. Yes.
Well, if it's
asking
conditional
price. Yes,
sold,
sorry.
so
Yes.
there's a little trick, well, not so much a trick, but a little
asking
insight
price, yeah.
here. When we're talking conditionally sold, the actual price that it conditionally sold for is confidential until it is actually sold firm.
Right.
So he's looking at the average of what the asking prices were on those two that are currently conditionally sold.
So in that neighborhood, all of Westboro,
Yeah.
that's Westboro West, Westboro, all the different sections. In the last 12 months, we've had 102 sales with an average price of $645,
Okay.
129. That's 7.9 months of inventory right now, which puts it at a buyer's market in that area.
Which you wouldn't expect.
No.
But I think that's partially because what's there right now is even above the average in that community. So we've got more of those properties attempting to reach a little bit higher in terms of price range, and that's putting a little bit of pressure, because if the buyers aren't seeing the value, it won't work.
Right. And so the average sale price, or average days on market, is 37 days on market in that area. Now when I go back 12 months, because I want to look at this 12-month period compared to the previous 12-month period,
Right.
116 sales.
Right.
So almost the same, a little more before, about 10% more.
Right.
Average sale price $607,541.
Right.
36 days on market, so virtually the same. So what's happening? Number of sales down 12%,
Right.
but prices up 6.2%.
Right. On average.
On average in that area.
Right. And what's on the market on average is 100,000, even more than that. Currently what's being offered
what's
for
being
sale.
offered for sale
And
on
that's
average.
maybe part of what's causing there to be so much inventory.
Yep.
The price has just gotten ahead of itself, so to speak.
So let's jump to Riverside South.
That's interesting though, isn't it?
Yes. Very interesting.
And there will be other markets in the city, in the Greenbelt and potentially without, where you have that same conversation happening.
They buck the trend.
Right, where they're bucking the trend, but not necessarily in all areas.
So let's go to Riverside South.
Yeah.
This was really interesting. 64 active properties for sale, almost the same number of actives. The last 12 months, 188 sales. Wow. Okay, which means we've got about 4.1 months of inventory. That's sliding close to a seller's market.
Yeah, because that's at about the 3-month mark.
Right? Yeah. So we're balanced, but sliding towards 4.1 is not a bad 34 days on market, same kind of number of days on market. But here's what's interesting, is the average sale price is down. Okay, 390,547 in the last 12 months. The previous 12 months, 398,631. So on average, the price is down about 2%. So even though it's more aggressive market, there's more buyers for the number of listings for sale, prices have fallen. And my suspicion is that the reason that market's picked up again is the sellers figured we can't sell at the price we're asking. They've lowered their price to what the market will allow, and it's picked back up.
Yeah, because I've actually been watching that. I've spent a lot of time in Riverside South over the last several months, and I have been watching those trends. A lot of the properties, in fact, are coming on the market at a certain price, being either amended just on that listing, which we're seeing a fair bit of, and also we're seeing some of it's coming off the market and coming back on the market at a lower price. So it's not uncommon to find 3, 4, 5, 6 even listings on one specific property at different prices. Not always at a different price, generally speaking. That's one of the items that's done. And so right now there is often a fair bit of spread between, even with that having been said, between the asking price and the selling price.
Yeah, it's still very close.
In Riverside 2%. South, the last few I've done have been further than
big,
that.
Yeah.
They've been a
but
larger
on average,
spread.
They're running 2%, 3% kind of max. Now, let's jump to an area of the city which typically has had a negative sense to it, and that's Vanier.
Right.
So Vanier,
and it's also a bit of a transitional area.
It's a transitional area as far as I'm concerned. It's getting better in some of the locations. It's very close to downtown. It's got a lot of things going for it. 28 active listings. Not a lot of listings in Vanier.
No, very few.
Average sale price $359,978. That means the average in Vanier is below the average of the city.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Last 12 months, 37 days on market, 78 sold. That's about 4.3 months of inventory. So similar inventory to Riverside South as far as demand goes. Now, the average purchase price, is $364. So the people have been buying at $364. The average list price right now is $359. So what it means is the market is priced where it should be compared to what people are buying. So very interesting. And then in the previous 12 months, there were 77 sold. So virtually the same number this 12 months compared to the last 12 months. 27 days on market, so they were selling a little quicker in the previous 12 months. So number of solds up 1.3%, price up 4.78%. So these transitional areas seem to be holding their pricing going up. Whereas some of the other areas that maybe were exciting, newer homes, growth area, lots of kids, new schools, places where they're struggling to keep their increases going. And maybe part of that is the construction, because there's a lot of new construction going on as well in those outlying areas.
So that's part of your competition, whereas in Vanier or in Westboro, the only new construction you're really competing with is an infill. And that's a different conversation because that moves you into the higher end of the price point in those communities anyway. As soon as you're buying a lot, not uncommon for a lot to be $400,000 or $500,000 in Westboro, and then tearing down the house. It's got a little house on it already, tearing it down and putting a property on it. We've sold a few in the last little bit where that's exactly been the plan. And so by the time you put a house on it, you're getting between that $1.5 and $2 million price range in those communities, which is obviously driving up price as well.
Yeah. Now, the other day I was in with a client registering them in a new home construction site, and it was quite interesting because the builder had quite a few properties that were already structurally designed. The building permit was received, and so they were not fully inventory houses because they're not completed, But maybe the foundation's in, maybe the foundation's not in, but they're ready to go.
Right.
So they can do fairly, 4 or 5 month closing periods instead of a year and a half on those particular models. Most of them are on special, $40,000-$50,000 off.
Yeah. Candace just
off
helped
their
a
list
client
price.
a few days ago purchase one of those where the framing is already done.
Mm-hmm.
It's already under construction, so it'll close in the next 3 to 4 months,
Yep.
which a new construction wouldn't. It's typically somewhere in the neighborhood of a year or 2, depending on where permit stage is at. So there's some opportunities there as well, and we as realtors have the opportunity to protect you there.
Yeah.
As long as we take you in and are part of the process with you, we can give you amazing counsel. The builders, generally speaking, cooperate and pay us a small fee for helping you purchase the home with them. And they do not charge you anymore. They're not discounting the purchase price of that property, whether you have representation or not. And reality is we can often save you even more money because we're actually there protecting your interests, representing you, whereas the builder is there to help you make decisions that benefit them.
Yeah. And what's interesting is I find builders are quicker to react to the market than the market is.
Right.
So
Then the buyers and the sellers in the market.
The sellers in the market are. Because that's why our inventory is growing so fast, is people are holding on to the price. They're not willing to reduce. Builders can't hold on to their inventory. It costs way too much to have housing sitting. And so they will react to the market and adjust downwards. So in some markets, a new construction home will cost you more than a resale home.
Yeah.
And in other markets, they're actually less money than a resale home.
Right.
So that's where you want to come in and have a consultation based on where you want to live, what's going on in the market, and we can help you there.
Because it's different everywhere. These are not, we're giving you general stats the best that we can to give you an overview and an understanding of the market, but you can see by just looking at 3 little areas today, the diversity.
Yep.
And that's the case for all the areas throughout the city. So if you would like a regular update on your area, we can actually do that by email. And we do that for a lot of our clients and those that consider us as their realtor of choice and their realtor for life. We have them set up on a monthly update where they actually just comes into their inbox.
Yeah.
And they can see what's happening and be watching, and they can flag it, and they can write notes, and we can have dialogue around what's happening in there, depending on how invested they are in really understanding the nitty-gritty of the market, or if they just want an overview. It's amazing, actually.
So if you'd like that information, what you would do, if you'd like that information, right?
Yeah.
You're going to send us an email at info, I-N-F-O, at Dekker Team, DEKKERTEAM.com. And we'd love to set that up for you.
Absolutely.
You can also call us for a personal consultation at 613-860-4663. We're glad you joined us on the Inside Track
And
on
you
Real
better
Estate.
just tell them about one great little value. Give them a teaser, because I
Nope,
promise.
they got to listen to the next show. We're out of time.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye.
Bye.